Welcome to the show, Monty.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
No, I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited rather, to deep dive into the world of non-fungible tokens and NFTs today. But before we go down that tech rabbit hole, I'd love to learn a little bit more about yourself. I know you're joining me from Mexico City at the moment. You're a digital nomad, as they say, or a digital vagabond even. And you're currently working for Saatchi Art. So I'd love to know what your role at Saatchi Art is, but more so, like, how did you get into the art space to begin with?
Happy to dive into that. So currently I work at Saatchi Art. As you said, I'm the manager of the art advisory and curation team. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that I work with our team of curators to help artists make a living doing what they love to do, which is to create. So Saatchi Art is the world's leading online art gallery for emerging artists. And we work with people who are located around the world, mm-hmm. connecting them with collectors to help them sell their work, helping collectors find artwork that really speaks to them. And we do, all of the merchandising and editorial work and content for the website, as well as offering art advisory services to collectors.
Yeah. And Saatchi has like over 100,000 artists on the platform. I'm seeing here over 100 countries and sells more than 50 million US dollars worth of art per year. So that's a lot of activity.
It is a lot of activity. It's a lot of fun, though. It's really wonderful. We get to work with people who are from everywhere, different perspectives, different mm-hmm. stories, different paths into art themselves. So it's really fascinating to get to work with all of these people, and really rewarding to help them, advance their artistic careers.
Yeah. And are there any sort of stories that stick out to you? I mean, we've got here, artists from over 100 countries, emerging artists, helping them make a living with their art, which perhaps in the absence of Saatchi Art and platforms like it, they wouldn't be able to do. So is there perhaps one story that stands out to you from an artist you help, put their brand and art to the world?
There are so many, to be honest. Many artists come to Saatchi Art and, they're creating incredible work, but they really haven't maybe been able to spend the time or energy marketing their works mm-hmm. before, and having a team of people who specifically are invested in that really allows us to be able to sort of change somebody's path, right? So a couple of examples, Zan Padron is a really fantastic photographer, and he started sharing his works with us on Saatchi Art. He's mm-hmm. been an exhibitor at the other art fair, at our various fairs around the world. And he's just seen enormous success. He creates these really fantastic photographic images where he goes and he'll park himself in front of a brightly colored wall in various cities around the world, and he'll take mm-hmm. a snapshot of people as they walk by. And then he composites all of the snapshots together to create this really amazing sort of like look at all of the people who've been passing by in a given day. And it sort of has this like metronomic quality to it. But his pieces have ended up in, embassies around the world, and he had a show at the World Trade Center, and, he's just had really quite a lot of success with us and, in his other endeavors and showing at the other art fairs. So I think he's a great example of what can happen when you really dedicate yourself full time and start working with us.
Definitely. And I think it's so important what you touched on earlier around the marketing and promotion piece, because whether it's, digital art, whether it's, painting, whether it's sculpting, or even just creating digital media like YouTube channels and podcast episodes and writing articles and blogs online. Like if you look at the statistics, there's something like 0.25% of YouTube channels make any money. Something like 7%, I think it was, of Medium authors have made more than $100 on the platform. So you can have all these amazing people, you can give them a platform to create, but unless they have that leg up in terms of marketing to kind of get through that trough of sorrow, so many people just kind of quit because they do, they write 10 or 20 articles, they put out 20 podcast episodes, maybe they publish a number of digital pieces of art, and they don't really get much traction, and they kind of get disgruntled and say, well, I'm just going to go and work for Amazon. So I think it's so important what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is very, very hard. And I think that for a lot of creators, what you're doing best is creating and producing that content, and having to then figure out how to navigate the world of marketing and everything that goes along with that, just
Mm,
business in general, right? It may not be your strength. For some artists, it is. And there are definitely people who do both very well. But what we offer is the opportunity for artists to really be able to focus on creating, which is what
mm.
they do best. And we sort of take care of the rest.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And so many creators that I know, just, like literally explicitly tell me, I hate the business stuff. I don't want to work on it. I know, I know there are creators that do get the business stuff, but so many of them just want to work on that tiny little niche that they absolutely love, that they're absolutely good at,
Yeah.
that they get that positive feedback loop from. They walk away feeling fulfilled, as opposed to spending time reconciling invoices in, an accounting software platform and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as a curator, one of the really like exciting things that we get to do is help tell artists stories and
Mhm.
put their work into context and share that with collectors and people so that they know how to appreciate the work, and they can really learn to understand what an artist is doing and who that artist is and why they're motivated to create the work that they're creating. So yeah, I think curation is a really big part of that in the art world, and it's really great for artists to be able to have the opportunity to work with curators.
Definitely. And how did you get into this space, Monty?
So it's a very long, convoluted story. But I grew up in a really arts-oriented household. My mom is an artist, photographer, painter,
Hmm.
illustrator, graphic design. So I was really immersed in it from a young age, and it was always something that I found, I was very passionate about. But I didn't really think that I would, pursue it as a career. I mean, I'm an artist as well, practicing. I, do traditional oil paint, and I also do digital paintings as well.
Hmm.
So it's something that's been a passion for me. But I ended up going into sales after university, and working in like luxury sales, fashion,
Yeah.
and just sort of ended up being in a position where there was this opening at Saatchi Art, and my having a really good sales background and also this real passion for art and understanding sort of who artists are, having grown up with one, it just seemed like a really great opportunity. And as it turned out, the fit was excellent, and I just love working at Saatchi Art.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, and that's kind of evolved into this brave new world we find ourselves stepping into now with NFTs and non-fungible tokens. And Saatchi Art announced earlier this year that it too is moving into the world of NFTs, and you're responsible for leading the company's efforts. So that must be really exciting for you, given how early and embryonic we are in this whole world we find ourselves now in with NFTs and everything else.
Yeah, it's really thrilling. I'm so excited about the progress that we've made. Just currently today, actually tomorrow is the deadline for all of the artwork submissions that we're getting in from the artists who are
Mhm.
working on this project with us. So it's total mayhem over here, just reviewing everything and getting everybody in before the
How many
deadline. But
submissions did you have?
oh my gosh, I think we're at we're over 1,500 now.
Wow.
Probably expecting about 500 more over the next 2 days. So as you can imagine, I'm a little scattered. But the art, the art that is coming in is just incredible, and we have so many amazing artists who are working with us on this project.
Mhm.
It's really, really exciting to see people from everywhere. We have 30 artists from 35 different countries who are participating.
Yeah.
50% of our artists are women artists. And I think about 90% of our overall participants are brand new to NFTs. So it's been a wonderful journey to help onboard them into the space and teach them about, NFTs and crypto, and, set them up for best practices, get their wallets set up, for instance. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's very exciting. There's a lot happening right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine the education piece for artists who know nothing of Web 3.0 and NFTs is very big. And I think it's also a big piece for some of our audience. So we're going to deep dive into that today. And, NFTs, I'm reading a report from DAP Radar, who found that just in the last quarter alone, NFT sales surged to $10.7 billion. That's
Wow.
billion with a B in the third quarter of 2021. which is insane. So I can imagine this quarter, we're probably going to be looking at even more than that. So the frenzy for crypto assets is reaching brand new heights. But for the person who is none the wiser when it comes to Web3 and NFTs, what are NFTs, Monty?
So an NFT, it stands for non-fungible token, right? And before we really break down what that is, I think conceptually, what you need to understand about NFTs is that it's just a digital asset with verifiable ownership. And that ownership is verified on the blockchain, which is really just a distributed ledger. So that's what it is. It's just a token number that represents or points to a digital file, and it's recorded on the blockchain.
So that could be an image, an audio file, an article. It could be anything of that persuasion. So we've seen a tweet.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely anything. Right. and we've seen like over the past year, some NFTs, like obviously the Bored Ape Yacht Club is a huge sort of community of 10,000 NFTs, these images of apes, the most expensive of which, at least to date, sold for $3.4 million at a Sotheby's auction, which essentially, if someone is not familiar with this space, it is an image, a digital image of an ape. So some people, when you tell them this, some people, when you tell them this, they ask the question that's been asked a million times by people who are new to the space, which is, well, why can't I just right click it and save that image to my local drive? What do you say to people that ask that question?
Well, you can right click it and save it to your drive, right? But you aren't the owner. Like, correct. Turn around and try to sell that JPEG to me. You can't, right? And that's the beauty of NFTs. So this whole idea of having ownership over digital files, having scarcity introduced into internet, files and formats really allows, it really allows information to be freely distributed and shared, but it also means that the creators of that content are going to be able to be compensated for the work that they're doing.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I guess also, like, if I do own, for example, a NFT, a Bored Ape NFT, that then gives me all sorts of benefits as well, right? So I can use that. I can use the verification of my ownership of that NFT. I can use to gain access to parties and whatnot in the real world. It's not just this digital asset that sits in a wallet somewhere. It's all of this ecosystem that I get to tap into, right?
Absolutely. There are a lot of communities that are being built around these sort of NFT collections or avatar projects. And those communities have myriad benefits. So getting to connect with other people. There are DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. So groups that are based around owning a specific coin, for instance. And it's really just allowing you to connect with people, as you said, go to parties, get perks. There can be a ton of different types of utility built into NFTs. And that's really exciting. And I think probably where the world is going, we'll be trending more toward that and seeing more built-in experiences and offerings within ownership of NFTs. Obviously, there are still NFTs that are just like art NFTs that you want to visually appreciate, and maybe you resonate with the artist or the piece or whatever it is. And just like regular art, you can purchase an NFT that speaks to you on that level. But many artists now are introducing like the opportunity to have be part of a one-on-one community, or part of a community where you can interact one-on-one with the artist and so on and so forth, have access to new drops, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll touch on DAOs a little bit later in the conversation as well. I think it's important to kind of unpack how NFTs fit within the broader sort of ecosystem of, DAOs and, the metaverse and platforms like Decentraland and everything else. But just to kind of go a little bit further on NFTs. I mean, earlier I mentioned the Bored Ape that sold for over 3 million. I think the most expensive NFT was, kind of showed my hand there, was a Beeple that sold for like 69 million US, which again, it was a digital image of essentially a collage. And I can add a link to the show notes for people to check that out. But what do you think people are investing so heavily into these digital assets? Because I mean, if I own a Picasso, obviously Picasso's hand, his brush touched that canvas, whereas it's hard to copy that. Like, we can print that, we can make prints and whatnot, but it's not the same. Whereas if I'm copy an image, and I understand it doesn't verify ownership and there are other things that come to that, it's kind of more or less the same image, it's the same pixels and everything else. So why do you think people are being so bullish about NFTs and investing so much money?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons. Obviously, it's a new technology, it's a new space, so it's really exciting, and people are rushing to get into, be sort of the first to interact and really make a statement and be a part of this space. So there's that motivation. I think also, in terms of like the Bored Apes, for instance, right? There's a lot of social status that can come with being one of these collectors of a limited number of avatars. So there's the social motivation as well, which we do see in the traditional fine art world too, right? You spend a lot of money on an artwork and you want to show it off in your house, and that's part of the motivation. I think for a lot of people, digital art isn't something that has really been at the forefront of what's been presented as fine art. And I think we're seeing a shift there, which is really exciting because there are so many incredible digital creators who haven't been able to really make a living just selling their art, their digitally native art, right? For a lot of digital creators, it's a matter of having to find corporate clients who will commission something or working with a brand. And often that means compromising your artistic vision. So, I think it's really great that now digital art is sort of coming to the forefront and people are learning how to appreciate it and see what's really special about it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big sort of philosophical sort of arguments around NFTs is that it does, or it can help to create more of a middle class for creators, whether they're musicians, whether they're artists, painters, whatever the case is. Particularly like when you look at say music, for example, the top 1% of artists on Spotify have like the lion's share of streams and revenue. And it's really hard for anyone else to stand up or stand out in that sort of environment. And if you're an independent artist, like you said, you could try go down the route of getting on a record label, but that might come with compromising your artistic integrity and creative integrity and what you want to do and the kind of music you want to put out there. Whereas NFTs might offer a sort of in between where you still can earn money doing what you love without compromising your art, essentially. So I guess a question I have is on generational shifts. So I think it was last year or the year before when Travis Scott did a concert in Fortnite, and it pulled like 12.3 million people. Now, Fortnite predominantly, Gen Z, maybe younger millennials as well, use that. Now, of course, I'm kind of stereotyping. I'm sure there are people in Gen X using that game and playing and whatnot, but predominantly those audiences. And for them, like they've grown up, they're digital natives. They've always had their phones in their hands and everything else from a relatively young age. They don't see any issue. They're like, yeah, I want to go and watch Travis Scott in Fortnite. Like, why would I pay money and travel and train to an arena and sit there with all these other sweaty, stinky people and watch a concert in real life? Like, there is a generational shift going on. So, like, when it comes to the adoption of NFTs and the enthusiasm for it, are you seeing that it's coming from certain demographics more so than others? Like, how is that playing
out? Good question. I think that it's sort of all across the board. From what I have seen, like statistics wise, it does tend to, like, most crypto adopters, I believe, are millennials, men, and there is a growing number of millennial women who are interested in crypto, maybe haven't taken the plunge. But I think if you look at, like, obviously there are a lot of Gen Z people who are investing in crypto and NFTs as well. And I think if you look at, as you said, just the integration of digital life with real life for Gen Zs who have grown up with screens and computers and iPads and phones and just everything at their fingertips, our lives are becoming increasingly more digital. And there's no reason that our assets should not reflect that as well.
Yeah. And I think we've always had, like, to some degree, like these assets. Like if you go back 20 years ago, games like World of Warcraft and, the earliest iterations of mobile games, you could buy, power-ups and things within those games. But you didn't really own them. Like that game was owned by a central entity who could shut you down, who could delete your account, do all that sort of stuff. Whereas now, once you buy, that sword in a game, that it's an NFT, suddenly you own that, you can sell that. Maybe the value of that sword will appreciate in value, whatever the case is. And it, I guess, kind of democratizes access to digital assets in a way, whereas previously it was kind of like you had these central entities who were gatekeepers who own the assets, and that was basically it. You paid them, you get to kind of rent the asset, use it on your avatar, and that was more or less it. So I guess it does give people more, like you said at the start of the conversation, ownership, really, in terms of what they're spending money on online.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the play to earn gaming movement that's happening right now, and Axie Infinities is a really good example of this, people are earning money playing this game. Right.
What can you tell us about Axie Infinity? Like, just sorry, Monty. I think it's like we can't just glaze over that one.
I haven't played, but that's only for lack of time, not for lack of interest. I think, I'm like, oh my God, I wish that I was playing Axie Infinity. But I mean, there are a lot of games like it. And I think for Axie Infinity, it's really, I think it's like you get these little Axies, you breed them, and then you could, you sell, like, I think there are love potions and things like that, and all these different assets that can be used in the game that you can sell and generate just by playing them. So it is allowing players to make money and make, in some cases, a living. And in certain countries, people spending all their time playing Axie Infinity are making a living playing this game. It's pretty wild. But there are a lot of games like this that are coming up. Recently I heard of Genopets. Digital Animals is a new one that is just launching, I think, in the next couple of days. It's very exciting. So I think we'll see more of these games popping up, and it's a little bit of like a Ready Player One world, but hopefully in a decentralized utopian environment rather than sort of the dystopian.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, one question that I had was, you mentioned earlier social benefits, right? So we buy this NFT, it gives us a form of social currency. We might feel better about ourselves. We get access to certain fan clubs and stuff like that. Is there perhaps, like you just mentioned, utopia and dystopia, for some kids who are out there perhaps lacking self-esteem? Maybe they're like, oh, well, if I buy this NFT of this ape and I kind of save all my money and I have $20,000, I can bid on it, and then I'll feel so much better about myself. Like, and we see this with physical assets too, where sometimes people will overinvest on maybe a nice car, a handbag, things like that, at the expense of perhaps investing in themselves as human beings and the things that are going to give them true, meaningful, long-lasting self-esteem. I mean, I think that's a risk with anything, but also something that might be a risk with, say, digital assets that give people or confer to people some form of social currency. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that people are initially drawn into the space by the idea of owning, one of these digital assets, and they may not completely understand why they want to own it or, what all of the benefits are. But I think that once you enter into owning an NFT and it is part of a community, you stay for that community, right? The benefits that you reap from having those connections with people are really special. And the crypto community are so welcoming and out there to help one another, and just really excited about all of the progress and developments that are happening. So it's a really interesting place to be right now. If you're not on crypto Twitter, I would highly recommend getting on there and following some accounts and just starting to take the temperature, because I think that, most people who explore it with an open mind it's a very positive movement. It's nice. It's a nice thing to be a part of.
Yeah. And I think just like what you said there, understanding why they're doing it, understanding the motivations. I think that's true of anything we do in life. Like, why do I want to eat this ice cream at 10 p.m.? Maybe because I'm feeling anxious about some stuff and I'm just trying to distract myself by eating a big bowl of ice cream. So I think it all comes back to intention, whether it's an NFT, an ice cream, a new pair of jeans, whatever the case is. So I totally get that. And like the whole community thing, I think is so true. Like, I think, getting onto crypto Twitter, maybe joining a few Discord channels as well, like of these decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs that you mentioned earlier, and just you don't even have to contribute. You can just observe how people are kind of rallying each other. Yeah, you can lurk.
Yeah.
And it is such a supportive community where people kind of acknowledge, okay, well, what can you help with? What can I help you with? You've got these strengths, I've got those strengths. What questions do you have? Oh yeah, I was where you were 6 months ago. Here's what you need to know. And it is a very supportive community, at least in these early stages when it's predominantly your early adopters jumping on board who are aligned with the mission of what these DAOs are about and what Web3 is about and everything else. As more people come on board, who knows whether that will get diluted. But at the same time, I think that perhaps brings us to like DAOs, where you have, rules that govern how an organization or a DAO operates. People vote on the rules of that organization, the decisions that are made, and you can only earn the ability to vote on decisions based on buying into a DAO, so earning some tokens or whatever the case is. So, I mean, how does this stuff all relate to each other? So our listeners might have the question, well, we're hearing Metaverse, we're hearing DAO, we're hearing NFTs. Like, how does this sort of ecosystem come together, particularly insofar as NFTs are concerned?
I think that really looking at the concept of decentralization and distribution and access, right? These are the things that sort of really underline this entire ecosystem. So being able to be anybody anywhere and purchase an NFT and have that NFT represent membership to a community of people where you as an owner get to partake in the decisions that community makes. What do we invest in? What is the common goal or purpose that we are working toward, right? And it's really about just democracy, opening things up to everybody, and having people be able to participate and be co-owners. And then I think, when you talk about the metaverse, right, like what the metaverse is going to look like is yet to be seen. There are a lot of players who are, Decentraland, Sandbox, Roblox, right? We have Facebook is now Meta. I think that, the metaverse is like a whole big topic, but really just what it offers, and that is access. So if you think about the concept of reality privilege, which is that there are people who live in major cities, have access to, let's say, art, for example. Not everybody in the world has access to that. They don't have access to best museums in the world. They may never get to travel to those places. And having a metaverse that opens all of this up in a digital fashion to be experienced and explored by people who are located anywhere in the world is really exciting. And I think it's going to be a really big factor in what the art world looks like, and probably just, outside of the art world, many, many things, the ways that we interact with one another, the ways that we experience travel, and many different industries.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on the metaverse and NFTs and what you mentioned on museums and whatnot, like I went through a digital NFT gallery a couple of days ago. I think I was in the Sandbox, and it was actually it was really fun. Like I was literally in this space for about 15 minutes, walking around, seeing all of the different NFTs and the artwork on the walls. And it kind of gave me the vibe that I might get inside a gallery to some degree, like not an absolute substitute, but definitely gave me some similar vibes. Like I was totally immersed in the space, which was kind of cool. And, the Sandbox is perhaps one of the most well-funded metaverses at the moment. I think they raised over $90 million and have attracted a number of high-profile residents, such as Snoop Dogg, who's perhaps the biggest profile resident there. And I was looking at the NFTs. So this is one thing that people, like we kind of touched on this with the Bored Ape Yacht Club social events, where the NFTs give you access to events. So if you you can buy an all-access pass to the Snoopyverse, which will get you into his metaverse, and it's about $500 US, which kind of more or less lines up with what you might pay to join, say, his VIP club, like in real life, or IRL, as all the cool kids are saying these days. And I just found that interesting. And I guess it's opening up new revenue streams for artists. So obviously Snoop Dogg, he's generated a ton of revenue, but for artists who haven't generated anywhere near as much. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But for artists who haven't, it's like, hey, I can now create a little metaverse online. I can put my art in there, and then I can sell $20 virtual tickets or whatever they want to price them at. People get the NFT. They can then access that space. They can then they can sell the ticket, they can do all sorts of stuff with it online, which is really exciting. So the thing that I'm hearing a lot of people in this space talk about, though, sometimes it sounds like, all right, well, this use case, using NFTs as access to a concert or something, or using an NFT to get backstage, we kind of already had that in a way, like with buying access to a fan club, or buying premium tickets through some ticket agency online and getting access to meet and greets and stuff like that. But I guess I'm keen to understand like what thinking you've done around like what are some of the more transformational like use cases that we might see come about, because obviously we're still early days and I think it will evolve quite a bit. I mean, are there any different sort of applications that you think are pretty exciting?
I think there are a number of really exciting applications for NFTs, and I think there will be many, many more. So, I mean, I just want to go back to, what you were talking about with access to IRL or in real life experiences. Gary V and V Friends, then that community and purchasing and owning, one of the V Friend NFTs gives you access to actually spend time with Gary V in some form, right? Whether it's like playing basketball or, a Skype or something like that, right? So being able to have this access is like being able to have this access is really novel, and it's exciting for people to be a part of this community who can then turn this NFT into an IRL physical experience, right? This digital good is providing something physical that you can actually go and do, and that's really cool. I think also, in terms of the metaverse, there are just so many incredible applications that have yet to be seen, but we're sort of starting to see the beginnings of. So Mars House, for example, the sale of that piece of real estate and the designs for that house in the metaverse, just incredible. And I think we will probably see more and more applications like this, like architecture. Wearables are also really interesting. So the idea of being able to own an NFT that is maybe a piece of clothing or makeup or something else, jewelry, whatever it is, being able to carry that between metaverses with you. Maybe it's something that, shows up on your Snapchat filters, for instance. And these are all we're starting to see these things happen. And I think that as we progress, we're going to have more immersive experiences. And as the technology continues to develop, just things that we maybe never even really imagined could be possible, will become possible through NFTs and through being able to own these NFTs.
Yeah, and I think that's a great response. And like when we think back to Web 1.0 and search engines like Lycos and Expedia and stuff like that, like the applications for the internet that we have today, we never would have imagined back in, say, 1995. And I think the same thing will evolve here. And it's interesting what you said on physical apparel and clothes in the real world being linked to NFTs, because I know Nike has started to trademark a number of NFTs that are linked to their sneakers. So we're seeing not just personalities, but a lot of big brands and corporations getting into the space of NFTs. We've seen the NBA. I think they generated something like over $1 billion of revenue from their partnership with Dapper Labs with these Top Shot NFTs, which are essentially video highlights. So we're seeing brands do all sorts of stuff. And I kind of jumped past the Nike thing, but they're planning to roll out NFTs where once you own a pair of sneakers, it's linked to an NFT online, and then there's all sorts of benefits that you accrue from that, and you can verify ownership. And then if you're selling these sneakers, that they're legit and you actually bought them at this date, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of verify that sort of provenance piece. So for larger brands getting into the space, like I mentioned, Nike, NBA, there's Coke, there's Budweiser, there's Louis Vuitton, Gucci did some stuff in Decentraland. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. But for brands who are perhaps kind of like still asking the question, what are NFTs? What's the metaverse? What the hell is a DAO? Like what should they perhaps start thinking about? Like what's the first step for brands looking to get into this space? I imagine Saatchi Art went through a similar exercise itself as it started to explore NFTs.
I think that obviously, we're really early, and the applications for NFTs and, just DAOs, et cetera, it's not going to be right for every business, right? So for Saatchi Art, I think the reason that we were so excited about NFTs is that the entire ethos of crypto is really in line with what we do. We are granting access to a way for artists to make a living doing what they love, and that's always been our mission. And equally connecting collectors with work that speaks to them. So that democratization of the art world is something that we're very passionate about. Transparency, being a welcoming place, teaching people about art. These are all things that, you know, are very prevalent also within NFTs in the crypto community. And so our mission really aligned with that. So it felt like a very natural progression for us to start exploring this space. So some of the things that, you know, we were thinking about is how do we not just create some sort of a project where one or two artists get to participate? What can we do on sort of a larger mass scale to help introduce NFTs and crypto to our artists and to our collectors? So I think it's really important, obviously, like if you're a brand and you're thinking about entering the space, does it make sense? It's something that you're offering. Is it relevant to NFTs, to crypto, right? How are you going to introduce your buyers to this? We are providing a ton of education around the space in general, not only to our artists who've been going through the process of getting their wallets set up and creating the art and learning new technologies, but also to our buyers. How do I make a reservation for an NFT? What is gas? What are gas wars? Right? How do I secure my assets properly? How do I even buy cryptocurrency? Like all of these questions that people who are new to the space find extremely intimidating. It's like, where do you even start? So I think that having a really strong educational onboarding process is super important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like just going down that rabbit hole myself over the past year or so, like initially it's like, okay, so I put money in Coinbase, then I kind of need to transfer it to MetaMask, and then I need to swap it on Uniswap, and then I get these tokens, and then I can get into this DAO. And how many tokens do I need? And what's wrapping ether? What the hell? And
Yeah.
it's constant learning. I kind of enjoy that. Like I'm an autodidact, so when I go down that rabbit hole, I'm like, oh, you constantly feel like you're learning something new. But for someone who's like new to the space, it can be very, very intimidating when they're just looking at all of these terms that they've never seen before, and they're dealing with money that they've worked hard to earn, and they're like, I don't want to lose it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think security is a really big issue, right? Steve, if you don't yet have a hardware wallet, I would highly recommend that you get one, because a hardware wallet is how you actually secure your assets, and a software wallet that is connected to the internet is frankly not secure. So just being prepared for all of these things that happen and being aware of like the scams and the vulnerabilities of being on Discord and having your DMs open and just having bots or malicious people DMing you and trying to get you to join their Discord, and then they take all of your assets basically when you connect your wallet. It's it's really serious, and everything that you can do to protect yourself and your assets and your hard-earned ETH or Bitcoin or NFTs, it's really important. So
yeah. And you mentioned gas fees as well a second ago. Like, hypothetically, what's gas like? That's a question people ask. And gas fees are something that, if you're transferring assets, for example, on the Ethereum blockchain, sometimes you might pay, $200 in gas fees and things like that. And that's obviously
up to $1,000 on a
wow
transaction.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
and sometimes that transaction could be like $500 and you spend like twice as much on gas fees.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, gas is really just the cost of doing a transaction on the network, right? So obviously the blockchain is supported. It's a distributed network of computers, basically, or nodes that are sustaining the blockchain, the network. And in order to process a transaction, it costs computing power. And so you have to pay gas in order to make that transaction happen. And those gas fees tend to go to the miners, who are the people who are supporting the network.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And I think over the next, obviously that comes with sort of, environmental costs as well, in terms of that computing power. But on the plus side, we are seeing new blockchains, whether it's, Solana, Polygon, and Ethereum moving to Ethereum 2.0, which is moving to a different type of work. So from proof of work to proof of stake, which should bring down both those gas fees and the environmental impacts of them. So I think the sooner we can get to that, the better it will be, not just for the NFT community, but for the world at large as well, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I hear a lot of concerns from artists who have an environmentally friendly practice and, you know, are hesitant to participate. And there are a lot of blockchains, as you said, that are proof of stake and they don't have the same energy consumption like Tezos, for instance, or Solana. And it will be really great when Ethereum moves over to proof of stake as well, and we can reduce the energy consumption by, like, I think it's 99% are the estimates. So
that's huge.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.
Let's just get into the other avatars project, which is
let's do it.
Yeah, what you're working on now, and like you said, that's, I imagine, the project that you received 1,500 submissions for. When does it go live? Like, what's the mission of the project? Tell me all about it. Give me the pitch.
Yes. So the mission is really to we wanted to launch Saatchi Art into this space with a really exciting project, and we wanted to have as many artists involved as we possibly could. So what we decided to do was a spin on generative avatar projects that are really popular in the space right now. And we are working with a collective of just over 150 artists who are producing hand-created, originally designed avatars based on the self-portraits of Vincent van Gogh. So we chose Vincent as our main character mascot because he's a great representative of, practicing working artists who, maybe were misunderstood in their time, which I think really speaks to NFTs and just the general perception from the masses. He's a little bit rogue. So he's a great mascot for this project. And we're having all of the artists who are participating creating a number of avatars based on Vincent in their own style. So we have oil painters who are painting portraits of Vincent van Gogh. We have digital artists who are creating animations. We have collage artists and photographers and just everything that you can possibly imagine. So it's just a really incredible collection of work that we're seeing so far that really showcases the breadth and of talent and diversity that we see in the artists who are on Saatchi Art and who show with us at the other art fair as well. Yeah,
and I mean, like you said, there's a ton of art you guys are bringing to the world as part of the other avatars project, the others avatars project, plural, I should say. When it comes to doing such a big drop, and given that this is such a big new space for Saatchi Art, of course Saatchi has its own resources and marketing resources and everything that it's bringing to the table. But how much sort of time, what sort of runway from announcing that you're doing this to actually doing the drop are you guys giving yourselves to ensure you're giving the artist the best chance of success when it does go live?
Oh my God, yeah. So it has been so much work in a very condensed period of time, right? We're very, very excited about this. And so I think initially I was imagining that we would have 3 months for artists to produce all of their work, and that was reduced to about 30 to 45 days. So our artists have been busting it, producing work that is just incredible. And the team has been working so hard just to make everything happen. So as I said, that the submissions are coming in over the next 2 days. We're wrapping that up. And then over the next month, we will be preparing everything in terms of actually minting the NFTs, finalizing the smart contract, accepting reservations. So the other avatars will become available for purchase first as part of a pre-sale to collectors who've made a reservation. And what we wanted to do was really encourage the Saatchi Art community of our current buyers and collectors to purchase their first NFT with us. So we're opening up reservations to them on January 6th. And then we're going to be opening it up to our NFT newsletter subscribers later that week, and followed by a general sale. Awesome. So more dates to come that we're looking at mid-January.
Cool. And if people want to learn more about the other avatars project and how they can get involved, perhaps as part of the early releases or perhaps as part of the general sale, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, head over to saatchiart.com/NFT. That's Saatchi spelled with two A's. So SAATCHIART.com/NFT, and sign up for the NFT newsletter, be a subscriber, and then you'll get access to our Discord for updates or info. We'll be, having AMAs with artists, and lots of little fun teasers will be released in there, so you can see more art and get on the list, and then you'll have access to get a reservation so that you can make sure that you get one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll add that link to the show notes for our listeners, and they can head down there and check it out.
Thanks.
And dip their toes into the world of NFTs and digital art. Monty, this has been a pleasure. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our audience has also learned a lot about NFTs and all things Web 3.0 today. Any parting words of wisdom about NFTs, the metaverse, Web 3.0, DAOs, this crazy world we find ourselves slowly but surely stepping into?
I think just for anybody who's interested in learning more, do your research, start exploring, have an open mind, ask questions, join some discords, get help. Crypto Twitter is a great place to learn more. So if anybody has any questions or wants to be pointed in the right direction, you're absolutely welcome to contact me. I'm on Twitter. My handle is @_Monty Preston. Feel free to send me a DM. If you're looking for anyone to follow or good advice, I'd be happy to share whatever resources I have. It's a really, really exciting time, and I think it's going to transform the internet and our experience of art as we know it. So I'm really excited about the future and everything that it holds.
Awesome. Well, that's a beautiful place to end this conversation. Monty, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.